Thank you for joining us today on the International Leadership Podcast. My name is Joe Beauchamp, your host. I'm also the founder of Beauchamp Team Growth Solutions. We provide leadership development strategy, training, coaching, mentoring, consulting on topics such as leadership, communication, personal growth, emotional intelligence, building a culture that is successful. Get all your team developed and growing in the right direction, rowing in the right direction, carrying the burden of your team so that your company can scale the way you want it to. Give us a call or shoot me an email and have your free introductory consultation. Thank you. Welcome back. This is episode 14 of the International Leadership Podcast. My name is Joe Beauchamp. I'm your host today. I'm also the founder of Beauchamp Team Growth Solutions. We're going to help your company build your leadership team. We're joined today by a very special guest, good friend of mine for the last several years, Tatiana Gao. Tatiana, why don't you say hello to our listening audience?
Well, hello, the audience. It's wonderful to be here. And thank you so much, Joe, for having me. It's such a pleasure and an honor to be on your podcast. I know we've had the professional relationship for several years through the Maxwell leadership team. And I couldn't be more grateful to, grow alongside each other and the team all together. So thank you for having me. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Tatiana was one of our speakers at the Live to Lead that we had this past January. Live to Lead is a leadership conference out here on Long Island, New York. Tatiana is coming down to us from Boston. You're in Boston right now? I mean, are you
Yes,
home now?
I'm in Boston. Yeah.
Tatiana's coming to us from Boston. I'm out here in Suffolk County, Long Island, New York. So we had this leadership conference and Tatiana was speaking on a topic that I think is very relevant for today. We're going to jump into that in the next part of this podcast. Right now, we just want to kind of get to know you a little bit better. So Tatiana, why don't you tell us, you're a leadership coach, you work on people's mindsets and, you do coaching and leadership development. Tell us, I guess, how did you get here? A little bit about your journey in this process. And we'll jump more into the leadership content in the next segment.
Sounds great. I am the transformational leadership and organizational development expert. I partner with leaders, teams, and organizations to build conscious, aligned, and high-performing ecosystems. And as a consultant, executive coach, conscious leadership architect, and certified Maxwell leadership team and DISC consultant, I integrate strategic leadership, human dynamics, communication, emotional intelligence, and organizational growth to help individuals and organizations evolve with the greater clarity, cohesion, resilience, and impact so that everyone can lead themselves where they are for greater impact altogether. My work is dedicated to strengthening the culture and elevating it, leadership presence, and strategic alignment in ways that actually foster alignment and sustainable growth, meaningful transformation, and lasting organizational success. So
Awesome.
This is just a little bit about me. I'm the founder of Manada Coaching and Consulting. And the story behind, since you asked me how did it all come to fruition, to existence, I never really planned on having a business. It sort of evolved during the COVID, when we were all forced to be introspective in terms of what truly mattered in our life. I started searching for my life purpose at that moment because I realized that where I was not enough, and I was meant for something bigger and greater, to make a greater impact, to help transform a lot more people on this planet. And when that process kicked off internally for me, I had to really look deep into, my personal story, harness and develop resilience, and then unpack that story so I can actually then further develop my conscious leadership method and share it with individuals, teams, and organizations as I do now.
Right.
Um, and Joe, my story, having been born and grew up in a different country, and then obviously being a proud citizen of the United States, but going through the most difficult transition during my young teenage years, when my country fell apart, the economy fell apart, my parents were laid off, lost the business. um, there was no food in the stores, and I remember seeing the empty shelves all around, and we had the coupons as the food was rationed. There was poverty, famine. No one really smiled on the streets. And
Wow.
then it was really tough because I'm still, debunking and rewiring all those scarcity mindset little
Yeah.
ticks that are still
Right.
ingrained
Right.
somewhere there
Plus,
in my
so
subconscious.
look, this is the International Leadership Podcast. We have viewers and listeners from around the world, 50 different countries. Um,
Mhm.
do you mind sharing which country you were born and raised in?
Not at all. I was born actually in the USSR. I grew up in Russia as it fell apart in 1991, and so the following several years were really dramatic, and it was like a great economic depression with 100% unemployment, zero money, zero
Wow.
food, and as you can imagine, that put a lot of strain on the families as well. And
Yeah.
so my parents ended up going through a very difficult divorce, also because in the Soviet or post-Soviet space, there was this understanding that domestic abuse is like a normal thing. No, not normal.
Wow.
And the expression, if he beats you, he loves you. It's kind of it was normalized, so women didn't really know how to support themselves and each other and things like that. So I actually ended
Mm.
up defending my mom from my dad, and not that I love both of them, and I know how hard it was for them to go through that time of famine, of poverty, of not knowing what future looks like for them and their kids.
Right.
But then I developed my own trauma at the age of
Yeah.
13, and had to deal with that throughout several years to come. And then when my dad finally moved out, I developed a really bad depression. And at that time, there were no psychologists readily available, no podcasts to listen to. All
Yeah.
we had is our like friends and family to kind of like keep each other afloat.
Yeah.
Uh, and
So
and
one
by
of the
the
things, we from our perspective here in the U.S. back at that time, because I was around. I remember when Ronald Reagan said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall,
mm,
and I remember when the USSR kind of uh, broke apart, kind of on purpose. I shouldn't say kind of. The U.S. had purposely decided to break apart, undo the communism, establish some level of capitalism, and so from here we all, Americans are like, oh, this is good news, and then we move on our days, and we don't realize
mhm,
that transition involves lives that are in complete upheaval. That
mhm,
family, like the system may not have been perfect, but people were being fed, things were taken care of, and then you're reshuffling the entire system around, and you end up with food shortages and businesses closing and
mhm,
unemployment and the whole system. I guess it sounds like the system kind of must have come to, in some parts at least anyway, a grinding halt. Um,
mhm,
Obviously, people are still alive in all those countries today. They survive, so it couldn't have been a complete halt, but it was definitely a very traumatic experience at that time. That's going to kind of lead into what a little bit we're talking about later on when it comes to leadership and the emotional aspect of it. But we just don't really realize the effects of transitioning a system, especially how it would feel in another country. I think most Americans that are my age, I'm 55, we sort of nodded, this is a nice thing, and we moved on with our lives without really thinking too much more about, the lives of millions of people over there,
Mhm.
day by day, struggling with the transition.
This is such a great point, and thank you so much for bringing this, to everyone's attention. Because sometimes the same situation. This is why it's so important for leadership, and we're going to talk about emotional intelligence and awareness, situational awareness, and self-awareness. Because the same situation looks very different from different perspectives, right? And
Yeah.
so, if you ask anyone, who comes from the former Soviet country, any of those, they will tell you some horror stories of how they've survived through scarcity, through trauma, through poverty, through like
Yeah.
surviving and not having like their basic needs met. And it was also the time of a lot of gangs, and it was really dangerous to be like just in general to be on the street. I used to carry an umbrella with
Wow.
me every time I was going to the university, just to give you an idea. So, no, in case if I had to protect myself. So, yeah, the
Right.
perspectives can be very different, and it's really important to consider different sides of the story.
Yeah.
Um, and so my story.
So you're in this upheaval, and then, I know there's another facet of your story personally.
Mhm.
Um,
Yes,
I think that plays into your mindset today. Do you want to share a little about that?
yes, I would absolutely love to, simply because my story is a testimony that if any of the listeners who is going right now through some very difficult times, knowing that every hardship is an opportunity, but I had to learn it the hard way.
Thank you to our sponsor, MTL Telephones. That's mtltelephones.com. You want to give them a call at 631-823-7100. MTL Telephones provides voice over IP telephone services, most likely cheaper than the price that you're paying right now, and more options. For example, I use it for my telephone service, and I can answer my call from any device, my laptop, a tablet, my smartphone, or a phone system from anywhere in the world. I can answer it here, or my assistant can answer it halfway across the world. Voicemail messages get transcribed and sent to me as text messages, as well as I can send and receive text messages from that voice over IP. They also have an AI auto assistant so that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, your phone can be answered by an AI assistant that you have trained. So once again, you want to give them a call, go visit their website at mtltelephones.com or call their number at 631-823-7100. Pick option 5 for sales. Give Mike a call. So thank you so much, MTL, for being our sponsor for this broadcast. Continue.
Um, so as a teenager, I had to finish, graduate from the high school, and then I was applying to universities, and I got the full scholarship to Kuban State University, which was a lot of work, a lot of nerves, a lot of entrance exams, which is not the same as it is now. We actually had some oral exams when you had to pull the ticket, then you had to, half an hour to prepare, and then you had to speak in front of a committee of 3 to 5 people. And by the time you finish your presentation, you already forget what your name is because you're so stressed. Anyway, but
Wow.
that was done. And, have you ever experienced this feeling as if you are sitting on a box of powder just waiting for a match to drop for it to explode? That
Yeah.
was that was the way how I felt through the entire several years, like in the late 90s, growing up and finishing the school. And at some point, it sort of resolved in me jumping out of a window and breaking my back, sort of as a rebellious act against everything that was going on, between the misery of living in the communal hostel where we had to share the kitchen with 6 other families. We,
Wow.
had to share the bathroom. We didn't even have a shower. So as a young kid, I had to, walk over to my aunt's apartment, which is like 10, 15 minutes away, and take a shower. So it was tough on all levels. But one thing I learned from that is that you have to keep going. You have to, no matter
Yeah.
what's going on, you have to pull yourself together. and know that tomorrow is going to be better. Somehow it will.
Yeah.
And it was true.
Yeah. Some grit, some resilience.
And
These are skills that we can develop over our lifetime, and that with a little bit of focus and some good effort, we can develop those skills of grit, resilience. They're parts of emotional intelligence, and
Mhm.
that mindset. Like this. I don't know how many years between when the Soviet Union broke apart and when you decided to jump out the window, but in that time, it's just an extreme emotional upheaval. Life as we knew it was totally
Yes.
turned on end. And humans do have a need for unpredictability, but we have a bigger need for predictability, right? So there's always a balance between, I don't want everything to always be predictable, that would be boring, but I also
Yep.
don't want everything to always be and that's the situation that you're in, this super stressful, prolonged, day after day stressful situation of uncertainty. um, and I think that additional trauma kind of built up, and at some point in time, you just decided, the response is, I'm jumping out this window. I don't think you expected to break your back when you jumped out, but somehow you jumped out the window, and that's what ended up happening.
Yes, that's exactly what happened. And just imagine that you're lying, you just got back from a hospital where you spent a month after a serious restorative surgery. One of the vertebrae cracked open, and so they had to, reconstruct it back. And there was a bunch of metal in my back. And I assume, Joe, you're coming back to us in just a moment, hopefully. And so imagine that you're lying on this makeshift bed made out of an extended leg of a couch, a wooden door, and a thin mattress on top. And it's your head, you're lying on your stomach, it's your head, a bowl of soup, and your dog's head on the other side, giving you the puppy dog's eyes, asking for some food. But that was the way how I had to relearn and rethink the everyday things that we take for granted: the walking, the bathing, the reading, the seat. You are not allowed, like I was not allowed to sit for half a year, and I just got into the university. I was a freshman. So, and right around that time, when the hardest thing in life occurs, you're always given the most important and critical support. And that's what I've discovered in my life. And I met my sensei, the founder of Headwind School of Psychology, Martial Arts, and Meditation. And so I was doing Wing Chun 3 times a week. And then on Sundays, he would invite select students to practice practical psychology tools, meditation, visualization, concentration of attention exercises to help pull yourself out of difficult emotional states, learn to self-regulate emotions and your nervous system. And so interestingly, for the first time in my life, I had to make an executive decision to take an academic year off, or not to take. And if I didn't take it, I would need to go to the university and stand in classes because I wasn't allowed to sit. And I really listened to myself as a teenager at 17 for the first time. And I said, I'm going to go to classes. And I stood at lectures. Now, the funny part is that in the big class, professors would forget where I stand because there was, a lot of students. And I would say, you can sit down now. Well, actually, I can't. And my teacher, my sensei, actually said this powerful phrase to me back then. He looked at me very seriously and calmly, and he said, Tatiana, you have to become the leader of your life. And I'm looking at him as a teenager, like, what does that mean? Like, yes, sure, like, I'm ready, I'm up for it, like, anything to get me out of this hole, right?
Hmm.
And that was the journey. And ever since that moment, my journey as the conscious leader of my life began. And rewind, fast forward into COVID, when I was doing reflection in terms of who I am and what matters to me and what impact I want to create, I created my conscious leadership method, which allows for an individual to harness their inner power after going through some tremendous hardships in their life and no longer feel like a victim, but building that resilience, building that grit, and making it their power so that they can actually build and turn it into power and purpose.
Yeah. Welcome to America's Virtual Chamber of Commerce and Industry. My name is Joe Beauchamp. I'm one of the founding members here. I'm also the chair of the leadership committee. I'm here to help leaders develop strategies. My company is Beauchamp Team Growth Solutions. We help business owners and business leaders to develop their leadership skills, the leadership skills of their team. We know that better leaders get better results, and we provide that leadership strategy, training, and education for business leaders to run their companies better. Hope you can join us at the America's Virtual Chamber of Commerce. I look forward to seeing you soon. Yeah, that's great. I think I'm going to say, everybody has gone through something traumatic, maybe not as traumatic as some of the things that you've experienced. And it's not always easy for people to deal with that life trauma. And sometimes those things haunt people for years, maybe the entire rest of their lives. And these things happen in business leaders. Business leaders are not immune, right? They don't erase their personal life when they walk into work. That's impossible to do. I did have somebody one time tell me, I heard that some people say that they put blinders on when they come to work so they can focus on work. And that was right after my son had passed away. And I thought that was a very callous thing to say, to put blinders on, to forget that I have a personal life, that I'm a human being with a family, to come into work. So, leaders come into work and need to understand that they themselves are bringing in this, life trauma, and the people that are working with them or for them, their clients, their suppliers, their vendors, their associates, their business partners, people are coming into work with these traumas that influence their way of thinking, their way of being, their way of perceiving the world around them. Emotion will often distort our ability to see clearly and our ability to make decisions clearly, right? If somebody's in a triggered emotional state, we tend to think more like a victim, and that, you're the enemy and you're out to get me, and I'm here to defend myself against you, kind of ways of thinking, which isn't the best way. So tell me a little bit about your conscious leadership style. You mentioned about leading above the line, leading below the line. How does that fit in? How does your life story influence that teaching and that ideology of conscious leading line and below the line leading?
The funny story is that when I started developing my conscious leadership method and I started writing my book, by the time I finished writing it, a colleague of mine mentions, "Oh, by the way, did you know that there is a book by the grandfather of the conscious leadership movement, Jim Dathmer, 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership?" And I was thinking to myself, how did that not surface for me like sooner? How did that?
Yeah.
How is it possible to miss that important information, right? And so I immediately got the book and I started reading, and I was fascinated by the way, Jim Dathmer and the team outlined the idea of the conscious leadership and leading above the line and below the line. So essentially, the methodology is I did not come up with the methodology for the leading above the line, below the line. But what is different in my conscious leadership method is I took it further. While there is an understanding of emotional intelligence and how it plays a critical role in leaders and teams and team dynamics, right? Understanding how we are wired, how we function, how our communication style, our cultural and familial upbringing and background, and what we bring to the table. And it's almost like, imagine there are 10 people sitting at a circle round table, and there's a white vase right in the middle, but everyone is wearing different colored glasses. Somebody's wearing yellow, pink, orange, blue, black, purple, blue, or gray, right? And if you are a person who is wearing yellow glasses, how would you explain to somebody who across the table who is wearing black glasses that the vase in fact is yellow?
Right.
Now this is the challenge. This is the challenge of perspectives, and we all have our own filter of perception. And as leaders, we all come to, and team members and business owners and partners, we all come to, to workplace, to a business, to a partnership with certain baggage, with certain, filters of perception. And it's about learning that awareness, understanding your, developing self-awareness in terms of how you function, how you learn, how you communicate as a leader, and then
Right.
developing the ability and the tools, use the tools for self-regulation. So when there is something happening in the conversation and we feel immediately triggered, using that moment as the power pause, and here's the tool right there, creating that power
Yeah.
pause before reacting back, taking a breath, maybe removing yourself from the situation, recentering, asking yourself this important question: what's going on? Why did I react that way? Like, it didn't sound like they said anything mean or malicious to me. Like, why am I responding in this
Yeah.
like aggressive manner? And then all of a sudden realizing, oh wait, maybe it's connected to that situation back when somebody mistreated me or I felt like a victim in that moment. And now it's coming back to me because I think of myself that way. And so
Right.
then coming back to the situation and saying it, practicing a new way of being in that moment and saying, okay, I know this is the trigger, but that was the past. Who am I as a leader now? And how do I want to communicate? Maybe there was a boundary that was crossed at that moment, but how can I communicate it clearly, simply, respectfully, and directly?
Yeah. So this
Um,
stuff takes work, right? I mean, obviously, so at that moment when the emotional trigger is happening, it takes a strategy, but that strategy and that mindset, we need to develop that beforehand, right? So in order, I'm going to say that, before I had any awareness of my emotional state, I just thought I was me, just plain old Joe Beauchamp. I'm the same person every day, all day, every day, no matter who it is, no matter what the situation is, not realizing that there's actually different versions of me that show up.
mhm,
And I was never aware of, where my emotions, like a little emotion meter inside my head. And so I ask people, let's start to just take a moment and do a quick self-assessment of where I am at emotionally. Am I feeling sad? Am I feeling anxious? Am I feeling happy? Am I peaceful? Am I calm? Am I resentful? Do I have
mhm,
um, fear or disdain or
mhm.
love or greed or whatever kind of emotion, right? So how am I feeling?
Right.
Kind of get a baseline for what that is, and then be able to recognize in a situation, am I getting emotionally triggered? Did something that just happened, a conversation, a word that somebody said, a red light, a cop pulling out, right? So I'm driving down the road and I see a cop and I can feel my heart gets a little bit racy. Why? Because I'm speeding.
Mm.
If you're a police officer in Suffolk County, don't come hunt me down if you watch this video. But I know I'm guilty, right? I'm speeding, and if I did the cop see me? So my heart raced a little bit. Okay, so I can
Mhm,
breathe, I
mhm,
calm down. But I could be in a conversation with somebody, and somebody can just say something completely benign, but I might experience that same thing. My heart rate might increase. My palms might get a little
mhm,
bit sweaty, or I might feel that emotional response happening. And then that I think you referred to it as a power pause,
mhm,
right? I guess that in that power pause gives you that opportunity to assess, hey, where am I? What just happened? What was it that created this emotional response? And I think in that processing, a calming effect happens, right? We're not
mhm,
separating at that moment. We're not but we're ourselves to calm down. And then we can determine, how do I want to be? So this is work that really should be done before that happens as well. And that is, who is the person that I really truly want to be? Who do I believe that I am? And how do I want to
mhm,
represent myself in this situation? Because at that moment, let's say somebody cuts me off on the road, right? My heart rate increases. I get a little hot, I feel a little frustrated. Person cut me off. The person I really truly want to be minds his own business and just keeps driving, calm and peaceful, and forgets that it ever happened. The person that I might get triggered to be is the person who goes and cuts that other person off. It shows him, there you go for cutting me off. That's punishment, right?
Mhm.
So being aware of the kind of behavior that we want to respond in is pre-work, pre-emotionally triggered situation. And then when that time comes up, say, who is really the best version of myself? Who do I truly want to be? The true person I want to be isn't going to yell or get angry or punish the other person or get vindictive or
Mhm.
resentful. And then be that version of yourself.
Yes, absolutely. And I think here's the addition to the emotional intelligence, the energetic intelligence. And I don't hear many places talk about this as a concept. And this is the part of the conscious leadership method. So, leadership presence is not only what we do, how we behave, how we act, what we say to people, because oftentimes it's connected to the authenticity. It is always connected to the authenticity, and our energy speaks about us louder than any body language, because we can still fake it. We can do poker face. We can put on the blinders and say nothing happened in our life,
Yeah.
and be screaming inside, right? So but the energy we can't fake. People sense it. And I often give this example. Imagine you're sitting in a boardroom and somebody walks in through the door, and all of a sudden everyone is like, "Oh, Bill is here. Hey, how's it going? Oh, so great to see you." The room lights up, the energy is elevated, and nobody really understands what happened. He hasn't really had a chance to speak, do anything, or project his body language, maybe slightly. And of course there is some history behind that. Probably maybe he has been a good leader to everyone, or good, team player, etc. On the other side, someone walks through the door, and the energy in the room immediately shrinks. Like, oh my God, no, not them. Can I hide under the table now? Have you ever experienced this feeling? I feel like we've all been there.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, our energy projects who we are being in that moment, where we are vibrating in our energy. And while in these two situations there's a history, how often have you found yourself standing behind a person in the grocery store or anywhere else, and for whatever reason you want to talk to them? They're so nice, they're smiling, they maybe they're with their kids, and you just want to have a small talk with them, and you don't really realize why you're drawn to them. Or on the other
Mm.
side, you're walking down the street and somebody's giving you this weird feeling. It's like, okay, I'm getting a really strange vibe from this person. I really want to stay away, right? So here's the thing. We don't often understand how far our energetic presence travels and what kind of impact we have on our team as leaders. um, all the weight that you're carrying, and if you are not dealing with that, if you're not doing the pre-work, as John mentioned, before you enter that room and be the leader for your team is going to sense it. If you are
Yeah.
absent-minded, meaning that you have a lot on your plate dealing personally, they're going to sense it. It's not going to be the same cohesive energy in the team, because they're going to start wondering, um, Bill is not present. What's going on? Is everything okay? And then it
Right.
starts impacting the energy and the culture of the team as well. So
Right.
here's sort of the conscious leadership in a nutshell. And then when it comes to leading above the line and below the line, the emotional intelligence is sort of like the indicator. It's a good way to think to yourself and make a daily assessment. Where am I leading myself and my team, my business today? Is it from below the line, meaning the victimhood, meaning like, oh, like everyone is mean and things happen to me and I'm in this blame state? It's like, oh, it just stubbed my toe. Like, oh, all right, that's the end of the world.
Yeah. The universe is
Or
out to get
right. I mean, it happens to the best of us. Or do we feel like, oh my God, what's a beautiful day? Everything is great. That's okay. I'll fix that. Don't worry, I got this. It's that attitude shift that we need to do. And here's the thing: we fluctuate in and out, up and down, throughout the day, like 50,000 times probably. But it's about learning and training your brain and your mind to choose to be above the line in every interaction, in every situation, in every trigger you experience. Say, oh, okay, thanks for letting me know, trigger, that I have something, some old stuff I have to get rid of. You
Yeah.
look at it, you bring your awareness to that, and you make a conscious choice to not take it with you into the future you,
Yeah.
into your future life.
And I think it's important to evaluate ourselves, right? So self-leadership, self-awareness, a great book, Insight by Tasha Eurich. I always recommend books on this podcast, but Insight by Tasha Eurich, a lot about self-awareness, but having that awareness of myself, leader, am I truly being the leader I truly want to be? Am I showing up in every relationship and every meeting, every interaction as the best version of me that I can be proud of being that version of me? Or am I being in this lesser version, a version of me that might be below the line? It's a little bit selfish, or I feel emotionally triggered, or I feel in danger, resentful. I have some negative emotions tied to that interaction. I might be acting in a way, I might be fearful and I might have resentment towards that person. And so I'm going to act in a way that is more self-preservation, which might seem more selfish in that
Mhm.
situation. So being aware of what's going on inside of us emotionally, being aware of what's going on inside the other person, right? So we might be interacting with somebody. Yesterday they were fine, and today they're not. And to be aware that something's going on with them, that they're getting emotionally triggered. I'm not dealing with the same person I was dealing with yesterday. Yesterday, I call that person A when we're in the best version of ourselves. And today, if the person's emotionally triggered, now I'm dealing with person B, a different version of that person. When they might be operating below the line, they may not recognize that they're below the line. They may not be conscious of their self, their awareness, their environment, their energy level, right? They're not aware of
Mhm.
that. If we're not aware, we can't implement strategies to fix it.
Absolutely. And I think it's also important to identify some of the behaviors that often we exhibit when we're either below the line or above the line. Because, say, there's the state of threat and reward, right? When we're below the line, we're in a state of threat. So, when it comes to team dynamics, we may be, create an approach of divide and conquering, or putting somebody on a spot in not a very kind way, or like giving different people different information, not having enough transparency so people don't feel like they belong to
Right.
to the team culture. And what does that look like above the line? And above the line is more like having discrete conversations, one-on-one, if something is not going well with that particular individual, like having more transparency, having the same message across the board to everyone, and creating this welcoming environment where everyone matters and every voice is important. So, yeah,
Right.
there is a lot to that for sure.
So what's tell us, what are some strategies if you were to pick the top, let's say the top 3, 2, 1, 5 strategies that help people to help themselves stay above the line? What would you say those strategies would be?
Okay, so number one, setting your morning up in the way to have a good day. It's really important. Most leaders I work with, I find that they think because they're very busy, yet they have to make their day very busy from the very beginning. So they start with getting to their cell phone and start scrolling, start answering the email. And here's what happens. The neuroscience has already proved that the morning when you're waking up, there are different meditative state that we are naturally in, right? So different like the delta alpha waves that as we are merging into the beta. And
Mm.
if you spend just about 10 to 15 minutes, maybe even 10 is good, listening to some meditative music, binaural beats, or just simply sitting quietly with yourself and thinking about bringing your mind into the operational power, where basically you are creating the program for yourself that today I'm leading above the line. Today, every interaction is wonderful, it's powerful, it's kind, and it's easy. The energy of ease always positions us in this feeling good state.
Mm.
And when we feel good, we immediately shift to above the line in our understanding, in our thinking, and in our energy. So we act
Because we're not
differently.
threatened, right? Being threatened is below the line. If it's easy, there's no threat, right? We're
Exactly.
successful.
So we're
We're above
removing
the
that
line.
right away.
Right.
Then minimizing the use of the cell phone as much as possible and being super present. Like if you're doing concentrated work with the client or at the computer, trying to minimize the distractions on your cell phone. That's really important because that is the energetic drain. A lot of people, like we're all dealing with that right now. And it's good to keep it under control and be disciplined about that.
Yeah.
And then three, something that I shared earlier, how to deal with triggers. Breathing is one of the aspects that I didn't mention yet, but it's really important. If you feel like you're walking into a conversation and your heart is fluttering and you think you don't know how you're going to handle this, just take 3 to 5 breaths. If you need, take 10 breaths. Slow breath in on the count to like 4 to 6. Hold your breath like 4 to 6 or to 8 counts, however long you can, until you feel like there is energy rising into your head. And then very slow breathing out, even slower, as slow as you can. And when you do that several times, you're going to immediately feel calm because this is the mechanism naturally we have that helps us to reset our nervous system. This is how powerful our breathing is. So, anytime when you feel tired, triggered, or angry, and you don't know what to do with it, just take some deep breaths. That's 3 strategies. Is that good? Do you want more?
Yeah, it's great. And then let's go back to some basics like sleeping properly, eating healthy, getting regular exercise, staying
Absolutely.
in social settings, laughing. I'll tell
Yeah.
you that when Thank you for listening to the International Leadership Podcast. My name is Joe Beauchamp, the host of the International Leadership Podcast and founder of Beauchamp Team Growth Solutions. Most leaders want to scale their businesses. The challenge is that you need to scale your own personal growth and leadership development in order to scale your business. You need to develop your own leadership as well as the leadership of the people underneath you. If you have a good team that's all moving in the same direction, helping to carry the load, you're going to be more successful at scaling your business. That's what Beauchamp Team Growth Solutions does. We train, we coach, we mentor, and we consult on business leadership strategy, leadership growth and development for leaders in the company in order to develop a good company culture, everyone's moving in the right direction, and to strategize your business for scaling. Give us a call at 631-770-7705 for a free initial consultation, or just email me at joe@beauchampteam.com. The contact information is right there on the screen, and I will respond to you and we'll be in touch. Thank you so much. Laughing. I'll tell you that when after my son passed away, there was I had to consider whether I would allow myself to enjoy life again, whether I would smile, have fun, laugh again. And I gave myself permission to enjoy life, to smile, to laugh. And in my really, distraught emotional states, I would do things to get myself out of that state. I would either exercise or I would watch something that was funny and make myself laugh. Or one of the things that I really love to do is help other people. Serving other people really dug me out of the deep depression that I was in. And there were times that I felt like I was on the brink of a complete breakdown. And I would be like, I need to go find somebody that's in a bad situation and I need to help them. And thankfully I was in a school district where that had, a lot of students that were in trouble. And I would just find a kid whose family life situation was messed up. And I would just counsel that kid out of, their stressful situation. And I would just feel kind of rejuvenated from that, from that down, depressed emotional state. So,
That's
so
incredible.
Tatiana,
Really
thank you. Yeah, moving forward. If we look to the future, right, we're gonna imagine the world as the best place that we can possibly make it. We're both on this journey to make the world a better place. Tell us about this world that you want to create. Like, what does the future look like if if your voice is being heard? If you could influence the world in a direction, what does that look like?
Wow, what a powerful question. It's really loaded too.
Yeah, well, let's figure out how to get there.
Yes, absolutely. I think we can do better than what we have now, for sure. And I think there is an opportunity in every hardship, right? We started with that every hardship is an opportunity. And it's about moving the systems and moving the entire way of, political systems, organizational systems, education to above the line. And that's a big task because let's face it, I think initially they were created with some good intention, and now they are like we're seeing them being in a place where they don't really benefit the people anymore. And so now we really need to rethink as people, what do we want to create? What does that thriving looks like for us? Because right now everyone is surviving, and I want to see the world where everyone thrives. And I know that this world can be created, and it's not a utopia. I mean, I thought that, 10 years ago, we thought that AI and robots were utopia. Look what's happening now. So
Yeah.
anything is possible if we all come together as a community and share our understanding of what truly is matters to us, right? But for that, it requires bravery, it requires self-awareness, it requires the your voice being heard. And the only person who can share what's on your mind, what's important to you, is like each and every one of us.
Yeah.
So I feel that the work that we are doing with you, Joe, is really important because we create spaces for people to share their stories and to share what truly matters to them, so that we can make decisions not from a suppressed emotional state where, like, me put the blinders on and it
Yeah.
creates the same cycle of, survival loop, but from above the line, where it's from this place of compassion, kindness, the gifts, harnessing our God given gifts, right? And then building on that to actually share that impact with everyone around. So,
Yeah. I agree. If I could, oops, spilled my water. If I could make the world an emotionally resilient and emotionally intelligent place and help everybody to develop good emotional fitness strategies um, to be loving and kind, to always be their best version of themselves, I'd love to do that. To the extent that we can do that through this podcast, we've got 180,000 or more subscribers to this podcast. So for all of you that are out there watching and listening, hopefully each and every one of you will develop steps into being aware of your emotional state and take steps into elevating from below the line to above the line, from an emotionally triggered place of feeling in danger to an emotionally safe place of feeling opportunity and love and gratitude and the positive emotional feelings, being in your best state, being person A instead of being person B. So, Tatiana, anything else that you want to share with our listening audience that you haven't had a chance to say so far?
I want to express my deepest gratitude to you. I think you are an incredible person, an incredible leader in what you offer to the organizations. And I love how welcoming you are to everyone around you. There are not enough people like you around, and I would like to change that because the kindness and the warmth and the genuine desire to help goes along the way. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And how can it's on the screen, but why don't you tell us, for the audience that can't see the screen that are listening in,
Mhm.
how can we reach you if people need to talk to you, they want your coaching, they want your training, they want to know more about the things that we spoke today? If people want to reach out to you, tell us, how do we reach you?
Of course, I'd love to connect with whoever is open to connecting. So, Manada Coaching and Consulting is the name of my company. You can reach me at my email, tatiana@monadacoaching.com. And my website is www.monadacoaching.com. So, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. I'd be happy to share with you the process, how I work with individuals, with business owners, and with organizations. And I wish you to thrive in joy.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you to our listening audience for tuning in today. So once again, my name is Joe Beauchamp. I am your host here at the International Leadership Podcast. Thanks so much for joining in, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Joe.
My pleasure. Thank you to our sponsor, MTL Telephones. That's mtltelephones.com. You want to give them a call at 631-823-7100. MTL Telephones provides voice over IP telephone services, most likely cheaper than the price that you're paying right now, and more options. For example, I use it for my telephone service, and I can answer my call from any device, my laptop, a tablet, my smartphone, or a phone system from anywhere in the world. I can answer it here, or my assistant can answer it halfway across the world. Voicemail messages get transcribed and sent to me as text messages, as well as I can send and receive text messages from that voice over IP. They also have an AI auto assistant so that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, your phone can be answered by an AI assistant that you have trained. So once again, you want to give them a call, go visit their website at mtltelephones.com or call their number at 631-823-7100. Pick option 5 for sales. Give Mike a call. So thank you so much, MTL, for being our sponsor for this broadcast. Well, that was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for watching our podcast of the International Leadership Podcast. Once again, my name is Joe Beauchamp, president and founder of Beauchamp Team Growth Solutions. That's beauchampteam.com. If you like this episode, please like it, share it, subscribe to this channel. If you're interested in being a guest or a sponsor of this program, please give me an email at info@beauchampteam.com. I'm more than happy to talk to you about it and discuss options and how it can work something out for everyone to win. Thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing you soon. Bye.